Bonjour à tous et bienvenue dans ce nouvel épisode du Digital Download.
Oops.
Oops. Good afternoon, good morning, and good day, wherever you may be joining us from. Welcome to another edition of the Digital Download, the longest running weekly business talk show on LinkedIn Live, now globally syndicated on TuneIn Radio through IBGR, the world's #1 business talk news and strategy radio network. Today on the Digital Download, we are dismantling one of the most persistent myths in sales, that the way to influence a deal early is to pick up the phone and interrupt someone. For this very special edition, I'm joined by Tim Hughes and Adam Gray to discuss why engaging early in the digital age is impossible if your approach is cold. But before we kick off the discussion, let's go around the set and introduce you gentlemen. While we're doing this, why don't you in the audience reach out to a friend, ping them, and have them join us. We strive to make the Digital Download an interactive experience, and audience participation, as you all know, is very much appreciated. Tim, do you want to kick us off, please?
Yes, thank you very much. Welcome to our small little podcast that we've been running now since 2021. My name is Tim Hughes. I'm the CEO and co-founder of DLA Ignite, and I'm also famous for writing the book Social Selling: Techniques to Influence Buyers and Changemakers.
Excellent. Thank you, Tim. Adam?
Hi, everybody. I'm Adam Gray. I'm Tim's business partner and co-founder of DLA Ignite. And I love the intro, Bertrand. the whole kind of, the best way to influence the deal early is to interrupt somebody. And when you said it like that, it's like, okay, well, we can just finish the show now, because that is the reality of it, isn't it? You know, none of us like that.
Yeah, but indeed it is a reality. So what I'll do is I'll start with a foundational question, as always. And so here we go. Why does cold outreach actually force you into the end of the buying cycle rather than at the beginning? Who wants
I think it's a great question, Bertrand, and thank you for setting this up and organizing it. Well, if you look at the Sixth Sense data that was released, it was Monday of this week, wasn't it? And if you're not aware of it, you need to check it out. Kerry Cunningham is the person that you need to look for on LinkedIn and the Sixth Sense report. It's a great reminder, because it's actually quite similar to the report they produced last year, of the way that people buy. And it shouldn't actually surprise us, because we're all buyers ourselves, and we all know that we hate being rung up. We all know that we hate having spam emails sent to us. But then we get into our work suits and seem to think it's okay to do it to other people. And I've seen all kinds of conversations about it on LinkedIn this week, about how, you need to lead with value. Which is a meaningless statement, because value, the word value means different from what you think is value, and what I think is value is very different. And the other thing is that what marketers think is value is actually buy my product because we're great. Which is, again, the only reason that I'm going to listen to that message is if I'm in market. So we have this situation, if you look at the Sixth Sense report, which is that we have now what they call a two-phase buying journey, which is the classic thing that we always have talked about forever, is that we have 95% of people are out of market and 5% of people are in market. It's about 5, it could be 4, it could be 6. And now what they have is this two-phase buying journey, which is that, in fact, people are going through a buying process where they are looking for a product or service, but they don't see themselves as in market. So if you phone them up and say, do you want to buy my product? Do you want a demo? They say no. And the reason for that is that they know the moment they say yes, they're a piece of meat in the CRM. and you're going to phone them every week or every month saying, are you going to buy? Are you going to buy? So you won't actually announce that you're in market as a buyer until you're probably in the process or close to of actually making a decision. Now, there's other details about that which I don't want to go to because I could take up the whole show talking about the Sixth Sense report. But what to answer your question, when you're cold calling, what that does is it forces you down towards the decision. Whereas the way that people buy now is that what people are doing is that they're making their decisions without salespeople. They're coming up with a short list, and so they're contacting the salespeople in they're contacting salespeople about 60-70% of the way through the buying process, and the short list that they're creating. Correct me if I'm wrong, Adam. They buy from 80% of it. They already know the people.
Yeah, so 80% of the time, the buyer that they ultimately select is in the shortlist that they have compiled.
Yeah.
No, sorry, that's right. 80% of the time, the buyer they buy from is the person that's number one on the shortlist they've compiled. 95% of the time, the buyer they buy from is within the shortlist of average of 4.65 companies.
So the only way that you can get on a buying list is to influence the sale early on. And to do that, you need to have, I'm just going to spell this out. To do this, you need to have a relationship with the buyer, and the buyer would need to trust you. Now, I'm happy for someone to come on and say, I've bought a BMW from a salesperson I didn't trust. But that's only because BMW are a trusted brand, and I trusted the brand rather than the salesperson. But in most cases, what people are doing is that they're buying from people that they know, like, and trust. And that's what the Sixth Sense report says.
So let me pick this one up because you said so there are basically two phases, and I, to be honest, I behave this way as well. I mean, when I'm on market, stage one, I will never confess that I'm actually on market.
Yeah.
For obvious reasons that you mentioned, I don't want to be a piece of meat in the CRM.
No,
that's clear, and I don't want to get a call every week on this. That's pretty obvious. But then, how do you build a pipeline?
Well, this is a really interesting thing. So one of the things that I thought was absolutely shocking from the Sixth Sense report was that the buyer makes a list of people that they want to put on their shortlist. Typically, that's around 5, just less than 5 potential providers. However, they may well take presentations from significantly more than 5. So just because you are getting the opportunity to present to the client, that doesn't mean that you're in the 95% of people that are going to be chosen. But one of the things that Kerry said, which I thought was remarkable, is the first question you should ask always when you're getting a conversation with a client is, have you found anybody else already?
Yeah. Who else are you talking to?
Yeah, but have you found anyone else already? Because the people you know who's number one, who's your first choice of companies that you want to do business with, and those are the people that you inevitably phone first. So if you are not the first person they're phoning, there's only a 20% chance that you will win the deal, even if you are on the short list. So I think that's quite telling. But what he said, which I thought was remarkable, which actually means that the entire go-to-market of most organizations is wrong, is that if you get the opportunity to present, you might be on the short list next time if they have liked you. Now, the challenge that most large organizations have is that they reshuffle their go-to-market and their territories every single year. So if you've got an 18-month buy cycle for the product that you're selling, you go to market, you say to somebody, here's your territory. The person goes out, they start to develop. Tim's already said how important relationships are. They go to develop relationships with their target market. They're getting within sight of the deal starting to happen, and they get moved to a different territory. So the next person comes in, and the next time it's Bertrand, and he has to go and then start to build relationships. So I think what this tells us is that smart go-to-market means that you put reps in a territory for a long period of time and give them the opportunity to build meaningful relationships with people over an extended period of time. And secondly, if you get the opportunity to present to an organization, it's absolutely crucial that you take that opportunity, even if you think there's no chance of you winning the deal because you weren't first or even in the chosen suppliers, because you may be next time. And for most people, they stay within organizations. You were in Oracle for 10 years. You were in Oracle for 15 years. So at the end of the day, there is the opportunity for you to set up the future for you, your territory, and your organization. But it requires long-term thinking. You said, Tim, about how you need to build meaningful relationships. That doesn't happen overnight. Yeah, you can luck out and you can be in the right place at the right time. Of course you can. And the more stuff you do, particularly on social, you connect to a diverse range of people in a diverse series of accounts within your territory. And the harder I practice, the luckier I get. The more people you connect to, the more people you have the chance of being in the right place with. Unlike cold outreach, you also get the opportunity to fold them into your content so that you can build relationships over time with those people. So if they're not in market now, they might be in market in 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, at some point in the foreseeable future, and you've already got a relationship with them, which is developing. But I think most importantly, it gives you the opportunity to start to plan a future. But this whole idea of cold outreach, you said it yourself at the beginning, Bertrand. How's interrupting people attractive? You didn't phrase it quite like that, but that's the gist of it. Because we all know, I got cold called just the other day by somebody from Vodafone, from a Vodafone reseller, saying we can offer you the best business tariff. And not only did I feel interrupted, they were really aggressive. I felt really awkward with the conversation. I was trying to get the phone down, okay, thank you. But so that because it was just a horrible experience. If you're trying to build a relationship, that is no way to start the relationship, is it?
Well, back in the 80s, I'm always very cautious with the people I have on the phone, because back in the 80s, I was doing that myself as a student to get a bit of cash. So I know what it feels to be on the phone.
Well, when I started my sales career in the 80s, I was cold calling, but the market was different, because actually people took your call because they were interested in there wasn't an infinite amount of information. If I want to find out, I was my first sales job was selling payroll and HR, as it's called, systems now. So now, if you wanted to go and find out what's the latest thing in payroll and HR, you just go onto the internet and find it.
Yeah, in those days there was no way.
Well, there was no way. So I would ring people up and say, did you know we can now do this? Oh wow, I didn't know you can do that. Explain to me how it works. You could have long conversations with people because they were generally interested. But I mean, I saw something recently where someone was being really pleased because they'd spammed out a load of stuff and had so much reaction because of an event. And I pointed out, the only people when people go to events generally are people that are in markets. So the fact that you've got conversations with them means you've got a problem with your sales force, because they're not having, because if they're in market, your sales force should be talking to them.
Yeah, but by the time you hope to discover them, it's too late, isn't it? They've made it.
Yeah. But I also would point out that when I started selling in the 80s, everybody said you need to engage really early.
So nothing's changed, really, has it?
So actually, nothing has changed.
But the way we engage early has changed. Or is there a way that we can engage early without being,
Well, I had a discussion with somebody because on LinkedIn, because they said that their conclusion from the Sixth Sense report was the fact that what we now find is that buyers are contacting salespeople when they're So last year it was 70%. Now it's actually 60% of the way through the buying process. So his reaction to that was, what you need to do is you need to spend a whole load of money on brand marketing.
Mhm. Which is a fair conclusion.
Well,
But well, profoundly wrong. But it is an.
I mean, if you want a strategy based on luck that someone's going to possibly see you, then yes. But I'm not sure that CEOs want strategies based on luck. I think they want strategies based on known process and known outcome. So it was like, so I asked him, so these buyers, so say somebody is, the company has 10,000 employees. They're going to change their payroll system. That is a massive change program that's going to require millions of pounds. A buyer is not, while a buyer may sit in a room and say, do you know, our payroll systems, it's creaking at the seams. We've done a whole bunch of mergers and acquisitions, and we need to probably drop some of those payroll systems. And we've now got a plant in Argentina, and so we need to somehow have some sort of global view on this. There will be somebody somewhere that will have advised them. Now, that may have come from a Boston Consulting, McKinsey, PwC, Accenture, but also it could come from a salesperson. A salesman, because when I talk about Boston, McKinsey, Accenture, Tata Consulting, they are all in the realms of being trusted advisors. And there's nothing to say that a salesperson who is selling payroll systems, who understand the payroll market, hasn't actually said, look, I've been looking at your company. I've done some research. I know you've done a whole load of M&A. You must be, your payroll systems must be creaking at the seams. Have you thought about it? Oh, no, we haven't. What would that mean? And so from day one, from a sales perspective, so for example, one of the salespeople at Salesforce that we've trained. This is so here in the UK nowadays. When you get a passport, it's really easy. All you have to do is actually take a photo with your iPhone, or you can actually use the photo that's on your driving license, which is a completely different government department. Or you can go to Tesco's, one of the supermarkets here, and you can go and sit in a booth and have your photo taken. And there's a QR code that will automatically upload your photo. Where did that come from? That all comes from the fact that salesperson from Salesforce went to those departments and said, it's really shit at the moment trying to get a passport. And he went to the passport office and they said, what could we do about it? And he said, well, if you buy MuleSoft from Salesforce, you're already a Salesforce customer, then what you're able to do is you're able to connect all these bits of piece. And they said, that's amazing. How do we buy it? I said, it's easy, just sign this form. Okay, let's do that.
But that is leading with value, right? But that comes with a conversation.
It is, but he basically he came up with that idea and he went to those people and suggested it. Now he keeps being told, so he keeps being asked, when did the people ring you? He said, no, they didn't ring me. I created it myself. And so my when people are saying we need to spend a whole load of money on marketing, yeah, well, you could actually spend a whole bunch of money on a Salesforce that will go out and create this for you.
But I think that's the key point, isn't it? That when you look at marketing material, brand marketing material, what you see is a whole bunch of stuff which is saying the same thing. In fact, I was recently looking at an Instagram feed from a funny company that do presentations to demonstrate the sort of stupidity of this all. And one of them said, if you're writing a mission statement, you need to say the customer is at the very heart of what we do. And that was BA said that. They said the customer is the center of what we do, is what HSBC says. And the customer is at the very heart of everything we do, is what RBS says. And O2 Business says the customer is the heart of everything we do. And it's like all of these people are saying exactly the same things, using exactly the same words, because they sound nice. And it's like this commoditized thing that everybody goes, oh, I want to be at the center of this. And the reality is that very rarely do people choose things from reading a brochure, particularly not complex things. And you said, Tim, about the fact that the point at which the buyer engages with the seller has moved from 70% to like 61% or whatever it is this year. Well, the reason for that is because, well, you need to spend more on brand marketing. Well, you could draw that conclusion, but that would be profoundly wrong, because the reason is that the customer's already made their list. They've spoken to salespeople. They've been out into they've used AI to say, what are the top 5 CRM systems or whatever I should use? They've made the list. The reality of this is it doesn't matter whether it's 60% or 70% or 80% or 50%. By the time you know that there is a deal, it is probably too late for you to be able to influence that deal. And that's why my last comment about GTMs being fundamentally broken. This idea that I need to qualify you in or out is a very, very dangerous and short-sighted thing to do, because Tim is not in market to buy one of these today, but he might be in market tomorrow. So if I ask him today, are you in market? And he says no, that's it. Okay, well, I'm not going to talk to you anymore. Whereas what we should be trying to do is to get as many people that fit our ICP within the orbit of what we say, in order that we know that if they are our ICP, we need some of those people to have a conversation with us. So we want that number to be as big as it can possibly be. It's not rocket science, really. But what people do need is a vehicle to do that, don't they?
And you know, that's a little bit of the question mark, to be honest. So how do you make things? How do you make that happen? So how do you make the shift from you know, hunting the ones that are in market today to, you know, be really, as you say, customer centric, and then create more of a community somehow?
Well, I personally think that that's partly to do with how organizations view their sales structure. You know, they're going to market in a way which is very, very outdated and very transactional rather than relationship based. And rather than focusing on measuring the thing, because we know what gets measured gets done, rather than measuring the things that actually make a difference, they measure things that seem like they're a really good idea. So just last week, I was speaking to somebody that is in sales support in a large tech organization. And some years ago, they had worked at another tech organization. And the other tech organization used to have 6 monthly reviews. So, you know, the big cheese from the US would fly into the UK and would sit down with all of the sales leaders and say, so Bertrand, what are you going to sell in the next 6 months? And you would say, I'm going to sell one of these, I'm going to sell one of these, and this is how much it's going to be. Or in the next year, this is what I'm going to sell. And then 6 months later, they'd come back and say, how are you getting on with that? Are you still going to sell 300K of this? And you'd say, no, actually, this is only going to be 280K. And then there would be the opportunity to say, okay, well, that value is that contract has devalued by 10%. What are you doing? What are you doing to make up that 10%? Because that was a big number. Whereas now everything is on dashboards, everything is delivered in real time. So the fact that you've revalued your 300K to 298K today, and 295K tomorrow, and 215K a day, none of these are big shifts, are they?
So I think to answer your question, Bertrand, one of the things that we need to do is need to find a mechanism in which the buyers are actually going to see our sellers as trustworthy people. And research, if you look at, I would recommend Matt Dixon's book, The Jolt Effect. There's also research from the Institute of Sales Professionals around personal brand. And while personal brand quite often seen is a fluffy thing, because quite often people have said what we need to do is have flowers on our profile or something like that. But to use that to use that term, what we need to do is first and foremost is that we as sellers, we need to look interesting and trustworthy to our buyers when we're on social media, which is where they are. So that's not having a banner of who the company is and a list of the products and services and that, because you look a threat. And you know, the moment you contact a person like that, you become a piece of meat in a CRM. And what we're trying to do, is we've already agreed, is we're not trying to be pieces of meat in CRMs. So we need to make things as easy as we can for the buyer. The other thing is that we know from research is that the buyer is looking for social proof that you know what you're talking about. So have you shared articles about their industry? Have you shared an article about what it takes to run an Argentinian or payroll or a global payroll? Do you understand the transformation that takes? When I don't mean sharing Adam's article. I'm talking about you sharing your articles. If I take Adam's article and share it, it's meaningless because it's Adam's article. It's nothing to do with me. And in fact, if there's a lot of people on LinkedIn that share other people's articles and they just look like idiots because they clearly don't know anything. And that's the only conclusion that you can jump to. Here I am, and I'm putting myself out there, and I don't know anything because I've shared lots of other people's articles. So this is about having that social proof that you are trustworthy, that you understand the market, you understand them as an organization, and thirdly, the fact that you are a human being. And this is about sharing things about yourself. And here I am standing out in the rain watching my kids play soccer or football, or here I am, this is a picture of me windsurfing or whatever. Because what we do is that we know that whenever people talk about those things, if you sit in a room with people and you say, do you know, this weekend I'm going windsurfing, everyone will move forward. You'll see the movement, and that movement is because people are interested. Oh yeah, so where'd you go? Oh, we go to West Wittering, and is the wind.
So when you say that you're going to do a proposal for your new HCM system that you're selling into a large supplier this weekend, do people not lean forward and have a conversation with you about that?
No, because nobody's interested. They're interested in you and who you are. So there's this rounded thing that we're, you're in terms of and this is what we're looking for as buyers. Now, it's not beyond the wit of man to actually put that together, especially if you get people in to actually help you to actually build this as a methodology. Now, what I'm saying is this is not Tim Hughes's opinion. This is all backed up by data. So if you're a data-driven company, you will be doing this. And this is so this will enable you. So when we know that the buyers are basically thinking about going in market, they will come on social media and they will be looking for people that can help them. And I know this because we have clients that are doing multi-million-dollar deals through this. We're thinking of buying a new accounting system. You look like you know what you're talking about. Can you come and help us? So that's one of the, you asked the question. So that's one of the things that people can be doing right now.
So so you got me, and I buy into this. That's fine. Now, as a sales director or as a VP of sales, how can I, clearly my KPIs are not focused on measuring early engagement the way you are thinking.
Well,
so
what
always should be my KPIs?
I mean, in terms of, we get asked this a lot, and of course, what you do is you do this, you do all your other things, and you do this as well. So as part of any change that's coming, you need to have senior leadership in terms of supporting this and saying this is right. But what you'll find over time is is that you'll get people going, I'm making a load of calls and I'm not getting anywhere. Whereas if I'm actually doing this, I'm getting somewhere. So PJ, for example, in Singapore, used to be making loads of cold calls, and he came to us because he wasn't getting anywhere. Now, because of what he's been doing in terms of his social profile, he's got so many meetings he doesn't know what to do, and he wouldn't go back to making cold calls. So what you have to do is it's not about cutting it and then stopping. Basically, what you will do is that there will be a natural point. There always is, where people are going, why are we still making cold calls? Because it doesn't get us anything.
But I think that's part of this is about getting the organization and the leadership to focus on things that drive the outcomes that they want, rather than activities that play to old ways of doing things. So, the number of dials that you make is irrelevant. The number of people you speak to, where there is a next action, so you've had a conversation and they listen, that's relevant. So if the two of those things are tied together, that's great. But these days they're not, because even if you make a dial, most people don't answer the phone. And if you do get through to somebody, they don't want to listen to you because they're not expecting your call. They haven't prepped for the call. They're not in market. They've more important things to do, or whatever the variables are. This is nothing about being anti-telephone, but it's absolutely about being anti-call and cold, because the issue is the same, whether it's email or whether it's knocking on somebody's door or whether it's phoning somebody. People want to have context for the conversation that they're about to have, particularly in a world full of scammers. If you get on the phone to somebody, you're a scammer. If you email somebody, you're a scammer until proven otherwise. And I think that's the key thing, isn't it? That we need to be, as we know, because we work with people for whom this has happened, where they're able to say, okay, I've got a methodology, I've got into the swing of doing things, and now I do one of these every single day and I get one call every single day. So for a salesperson that is prospecting their own territory and they're able to get one ICP enterprise level meeting every single day, that's an order of magnitude different from what you have previously got through the other means. But I think, unfortunately, people, and I often tell this joke, it's like, doctor, my wife thinks she's a chicken. Well, we need to put her in a home. Well, we would do, but we need the eggs. And it's like, we're doing all of this stuff. It's not leading anywhere, but, well, we need to do it because it's the basics. And in fact, you knew somebody that was in marketing at a large enterprise, didn't you, Tim? Where they said exactly that. You said, does emailing work? And they said, no. And you said, so why'd you do it? And they said, well, you've got to do the basics. But it's like knocking on doors and then punching the person that opens the door in the face and wondering why you don't sell anything. It's because it's not the way to begin a dialogue, is it?
Mm.
I mean, the data shows now that cold calling is an act of self-harm, because if you're cold calling, because you can get better, more and better results from other mechanisms. If you're cold calling, your company is falling behind. Period.
Yeah.
Still doing analog activities in 2025. I mean, it's like, really? I mean, it's prehistoric.
Yeah, it is exactly the way that we approach targets before the internet and digital age. And to assume that, and you said, Tim, about when you were first in sales and you would phone people up and they would want to have a conversation with you. That's because to pick a thing at random, if I were to buy a new CRM system, in those days, I would have had to have gone to the library, either bought industry press and looked at all the adverts, or gone to the library, gone to whichever directory it was that contained tech companies, looked through them, those that are CRM vendors, written down the thing, and then phoned them up. That's what I would have had to have done. So when you phoned up and said, we've got this new thing, there's nobody else in the industry that's got this, A, it would be a revelation to me, and B, I would have no way of validating what you said is whether it's true or not. Whereas today, it's easy.
So let me pose a question. So if we could sit. So if we could sit here and say, and the audience could, if we said, okay, give me the name of a CRM. So we could come up and say, there's Salesforce, there's Dynamics, there's Nimble,
there's Sugar, there's
we could come up with a list. The same with HR systems, the same with accounting systems. So on the Sixth Sense buying report, the average person that makes a decision is over 40, and they've done 8 decisions before. And then we'll get the question, so what about millennials? Well, actually, in the report, they show that the average person who's about 30 has done 6 purchases before. So they're not that different in terms of the age and well, in terms of the experience they have. So the question is if I'm not working for Salesforce, Microsoft, et cetera, how do I punch above my weight and get onto a shortlist when we know that ringing people up pisses them off?
Yeah, because everything we say is that it very much looks like the barrier of entry is extremely high.
Yeah. Because we know that if we know that these shortlists are being created by people that already have know the products and know the relationships, how do we actually get on the if we just started a new CRM system, how do we get onto shortlists?
Well, the only way that you can do it is by setting yourself up as an innovative challenger and sharing your brilliant new ideas with your customers. So exactly what we said at the very beginning, building the relationship and winning the trust of those people by talking about things they've not heard before. Now, clearly, the obvious way of doing that is through social, but getting in front of these people is the only way you stand any chance of being on that short list of organizations. Because, you're going to choose Salesforce because you've implemented it before. I'm going to use Dynamics because I've implemented it before. Bertrand's going to choose Nimble because he's implemented it before. So, those are the outstanding likely winners, unless somebody can go in and disrupt that process. And we talk about disruption as if it's kind of commonplace, and your product may be disruptive, but if your thinking and the way you take your product to market is not disruptive, you're not a disruptor.
The second point that I wanted to make was that during the presentation that Kerry did on Monday, he talked about buying teams and the fact that we often think about buying as a buyer in isolation, whereas in fact it's a buyer team. And the buyer's team, and those figures, can be anything between 4 to 12 people. If you're spending $1 million, there will be a buyer team. And what happens in organizations is that you will work within a team because it spreads the risk. Because, if you buy
the crowds and all that.
Yeah. Because if you buy a payroll system and the whole thing goes wrong, I can say, well, it was Adam's idea. But what he said was that there will be a buyer team. So let's say there's a buyer team. Let's keep it round figures, 10 people. From a selling perspective, if you think about, so there's 10 people in a room that are going to basically, okay, so which system are we going to go for? And they're going to vote on it. Now, you could have spent 2 years building a relationship with somebody who is going to go into that meeting supporting your solution, whereas the other 9 people are all going to support the competition. How is it that you make sure that when you go into when there is that meeting and they vote, that the majority of people are going to vote for your solution?
And even if they can't, even if there are 10 people and there are 10 solutions, and everybody's first vote is their own pet company, and everybody's second vote is you've won, because it's a deadlock, and it's about consensus. Is not about everybody agreeing. Consensus is about everybody agreeing not to block something.
So that means when we're in that situation, a one-to-one relationship, which is what a cold call gives us, is basically not fit for purpose. because what we need is that we actually need to have a one-to-many in that organization. And it's no point actually ringing people up. And I mean, you can ring 10 people and piss 10 people off if you want to, but you're not likely to get very far. So how is it that we can get into an organization where we can have a one-to-many? So LinkedIn would call it multi-threading, where we have a one-to-many relationship with people, where we can actually build trust with all those people, have conversations, and then make sure that through those relationships, that the vote is going to be for us.
That sounds really
It's a question.
really good. Sorry?
It was a question.
Really?
Well, I mean, the answer is obvious, isn't it? That you connect to these people on social, and you publish content that demonstrates you're the person you should be listening to. So you demonstrate through your content that you know what you're talking about, you understand what their challenges are, and you demonstrate that you're a nice person that is a human being as well. And every time somebody says, yeah, but LinkedIn is not for business, it's a business, it's not for pleasure, not for social stuff. Utter nonsense, because every salesperson in the world, given the choice between pitching in a boardroom or taking someone to a sporting event, would take them to the sporting event, because it's all about relationship, and they know that. So if you treat your content in the same way, some of it's about them, some of it's about what you do, some of it's about you, then you're covering all of those bases. And the beauty of this is that it's non-invasive. If I send you an email every single day, pretty quickly you block me. If I post something every day, you don't block me. Some of it you read, some of it you don't. On a day when you haven't got time to read my content, you won't read it. On a day when you have, maybe you will. So I can continue to publish content at a really high rate so that I'm maximizing the chance that you can see my content. And then that is my vehicle to convince you over an extended period of time that I'm the person you should be doing business with.
Because clearly, traditionally, what we've done, what we've always done. So number one, I don't think there is anything new in this. We've always wanted to engage early. It's now how you make that happen, which is very different, I think. But then one of the ways that one of the avenues to engage early was to go through partners. So basically, people who can influence your end customer. So are we saying that we're really going direct to our target customers, or are we also going through? Are we also networking, or you could say influencing their own influencers?
Yeah, I mean, partner networks are absolutely fantastic, but the fundamental problem with a partner is that they're not you. So you have no control over the deal.
Mm-hmm.
And if you are dealing with a partner, so Tim mentioned PwC and McKinsey earlier, they have relationships with every tech vendor. So if you're selling tech, it's like they're going to go to the company, and they're going to, maybe it will be the most appropriate product that they will recommend. Maybe it will be prudent for them to do it because they haven't sold enough of vendor B's product at the moment. Or maybe the people that they're selling to have a particular interest in a particular product. So you don't have any control or sight of that. Whereas if you're doing it yourself, you do. So yeah, let the partners keep doing their work, but it shouldn't stop you from developing these things yourself, should it, to go direct?
Yeah, it was already the case, by the way. So,
yeah. Can I raise something?
Another question.
Raise something in the next. We've got 5 minutes left. Which is the something I read from Scott Brinker, who, if you don't know, he is he works for HubSpot, doesn't he? But he produces a newsletter called the Chief Martech, and he's the person that's always come up with the Martech 1000 and then 2000 and then 20,000 or whatever it is. And he produced an interesting blog off the basis. He's got a report coming out in the next few weeks. There's a webinar as well for it. It's coming out on December the 2nd. The Martech for 2026 is coming out. And what he's talking about is AI agents. Now, classically, what we think of as AI agents as we'll get a bot and it will phone people and say, will you buy something? Which clearly is very efficient for salespeople, but an annoyance for buyers. And a lot of what he says in the document is actually a lot of the AI agents that are being built are replicating the processes that we've had since the 1980s and 1990s for marketing. And I always find it amazing that what we're not doing is actually seeing AI as an opportunity to redefine the way that we do things. A bit like the way that we found we could use spreadsheets for finance rather than an abacus. But what he is also doing is talking about is people probably aware that you can now go to OpenAI and buy stuff. I've not actually tried it myself, but a good friend of ours, Peter Springett, has done a number of posts about where he's bought trainers through OpenAI. Partly, I think he's experimenting. But the fact of the matter is that you're able to use OpenAI and Claude and all of these things to, in effect, ring a salesperson up. So what we're seeing now is these new buyer side AI agents, where whereas before we would have gone to an LLM as a buyer and gone, give me the top 5 payroll vendors, compare them in terms of their products, and tell me also what I'm missing as a prompt. You'd write that prompt and it would come up with it and put it in a nice table for you. What it's also doing is actually allowing these buyer things where they can actually ring salespeople. And of course, as a salesperson, when you're rung by a bot saying, here's Bertrand and he's looking to buy a pair of your trainers, what are you going to do? You're going to put the phone down. So there's this situation now where salespeople can be could actually be cold called by bots, which is a complete role reversal of where we probably started this conversation, which is about salespeople ringing buyers. Any comment?
Yeah, quite fascinating, and I've seen examples of this, of course, and I have to confess that I am, I clearly, when it comes to, for instance, e-learning platforms, the market analysis has been done by my AI assistant. So
yeah.
That
your AI assistant.
Yes. Yeah. So that is clearly, I think, just an absolute no-brainer. That's the way things happen right now.
But I think there's a lesson to be learned here. So I think it was 6 Sense last year that said, was it 80% of people or 60% of people wanted a completely rep-free buying experience?
It's a CEB Gartner one.
CEB, sorry. Yeah, so people want a rep-free buying experience. What was really interesting is that the people that had a rep-free buying experience, when asked whether or not they would do that again, they all said no. All of them said it was a mistake to have a rep-free buying experience. And I think that this is the issue. Like we've seen this, Scott Brinker doing his Martech 500, Martech 5,000, Martech 25,000 thing that's grown over time. There's a sprint towards efficiency at the cost of effectiveness. And I think we're going to see a similar thing with AI. AI has its place. Of course it does. It's an incredible labor-saving device that can help do things such as basic research and analysis and comparison really well, far more accurately and faster than we can do it. However, there are big gaps in what it can actually do. And I think that in this lust to remove people and speed the process, we're throwing away the very thing that is the thing that binds instances, and I think that's very dangerous.
And the reality is that if I take back that example on my e-learning platform, what I did at the back end of this is obviously place a few calls to people who do have an e-learning platform. So the whole idea of so I don't know which part in the buying cycle was taken care of by by my assistant, but it's probably basic research. And then when it comes to validation,
I would say that
then I have back channeled.
Yeah, I would say that. I mean, Scott in that article basically talks about there being a step until ultimately what we have is buyer and seller agents talking to each other. I think in commodities that situations that may be the case.
Yeah,
I think if you went to a board of a big company and said, "I'm going to spend $10 million on a payroll," and they say, "So what can you get the salesperson to come and talk to us?" You say, "Well, no, because I've done it all through AI." I think you'll be laughed out of the board meeting.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess the question is how do salespeople, because part of the challenge for salespeople and indeed entire sales functions within organizations is that if that is the inevitable singularity of going down this road, then all of these people are doing themselves out of a role. And in some cases, that's not a bad thing, because these are people that annoy you and keep repeatedly phoning you up and emailing you when you don't want to be. But for some people, they really do add value, and they do guide you and shepherd you through the buying process. And if we're not very careful, we're going to lose that. And I think as one of the interesting things that Kerry said in the webinar was, if you are a buyer of a product, you might have done this before. And the research shows that if you're relatively young, you might have done it 6 times. If you're experienced, you might have done it 8 times. If you are a seller of this, you do it all the time. So you know exactly what the pitfalls are. And actually, when you throw that away, then you are expecting the buyer to know every bit as much about the process as the vendor, which is a ludicrous assumption to make, isn't it? It's like me saying, I don't feel very well, I think my diagnosis of myself is this. Well, that's why you need a doctor, to actually be able to diagnose what the real problem is.
Yeah.
All right, gentlemen, this has been really great. Thank you so much for joining me today. And let me just, sorry, Adam, because that's going to go back again on you, and I feel so sorry. But we now have a newsletter, as you know. So you may scan the QR code on screen or visit us at digitaldownload.live/newsletter.
Next week, Adam, what you need to do is you need to get the QR code and cut it out and stick it on your forehead.
That's
and then when Bertrand does this bit, stick
I can just like
scan Adam's forehead.
Yeah,
I will do that next week. Okay. Thank you very much.